All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today to talk about the Sustainability Fellowship Program here at the University of New Hampshire. We are so thrilled by the level of interest in this program this year, and we're really glad to see so many people here today. Really excited to tell you a little bit about the program and to answer all of your questions about how to apply to become a fellow this summer. We have about 30 or 40 minutes of material. You'll hear from several people today, and then we'll open it up until we've used up the whole hour to answer as many of your questions as we're able to. Before we dive in, I just want to let you know that we are recording this webinar, and we'll have it up on our website as soon as we can after we're done to make sure everybody who log in now is able to check it out. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. So you're going to get a chance to hear from several of us today. I'm Megan Carney. I coordinate the Fellows Program. This program is really run by an entire team of people, and only some of them are here today. You'll also hear from Fana Bucher, who runs the Changemaker Collaborative, and she's going to tell you all about what that is if you don't know. Michelle Fox is here making behind the scenes. She also makes things run behind the scenes for the whole Sustainability Institute. So you may or may not hear her, but she's always there in the background, making sure we can do what we need to do. And then we have 3 alumni of the Fellows Program who are also here today. Kendall Gray, who was a fellow 2 years ago, and we just couldn't let her go. So she's still around working with the Changemaker Collaborative now. Carly Perruccio was a fellow this past summer, and she's now a digital media specialist at the Greater Portland Council of Governments. And Dovev Levine was a fellow in the first cohort of this program back in 2008. And now his day job is being the assistant dean of the graduate school at UNH, and he also is a key member of the team that runs this program. And before I go on, I should mention that there are a few other key players who are not here today. So Jen Andrews, who founded this program 13 years ago, still is a key member of the team that runs the program, and we couldn't do it without her, as well as Cameron Wake, who is a professor of climate and sustainability here at UNH, and has also been involved in the program for many years. And you also might see Kathy Meyer's name attached to things to do with the Fellows Program. She is the communications guru for the Sustainability Institute. So again, huge team effort, and looking forward to you getting a chance to hear from and ask questions of a few of us today. And first up will be Fana Bucher. So I will go ahead and turn it over to Fana.
Thanks so much, Megan. So hi, everyone. I'm so glad to see a big crowd here today. So I'm the director of the Changemaker Collaborative at UNH, and the Changemaker Collaborative is actually a partnership of the Sustainability Institute, the Paul College of Business and Economics, and the Carsey School of Public Policy. Go ahead, Megan. You can. Thank you. Oh, can you go to the next slide? Oh, perfect. So UNH is known as a leader in sustainability. We're super proud of being in the top 10 of eco-friendly colleges, the 10 coolest schools of 2020 by the Sierra Club, one of only 9 schools to achieve Platinum Stars rating. And UNH really drives students, and students drive sustainability leadership by getting involved in Changemaker Collaborative programs. No delay on there. Thank you. So the mission of the Changemaker Collaborative is to inspire, train, and support the next generation of changemakers who have the confidence and the skills to create a world where people, planet, and the economy all thrive. And we do that by offering high-impact programs steeped in real-world experiential learning for all students, no matter major, discipline, or interests. Our mission is really, and our goal is really to make sure that students who engage with us figure out what inspires them and what gets them out of bed every morning to create positive change in the world. We have a number of programs through the Changemaker Collaborative. And oftentimes we get asked, what are changemakers making changes to exactly? And so we align with the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, and you'll see there are social equity, environmental justice, and economic justice goals here. And so we are open to working with students in terms of what they're really interested in and what their passions are. So I mentioned that we have a number of programs. One is a Semester in the City program, which is an internship in Boston or at UNH. We have this fantastic Sustainability Fellowship, which is a paid summer opportunity for students to work on projects with regional organizations. We have a V Impact Clinic where we connect students to companies to consult for these businesses looking to assess their social and environmental impact through the B Corp certification. We host a social venture innovation challenge, which is a idea competition for students to come up with a solution to a major challenge in the world and compete with a 2-page paper and a 3-minute video, their idea, and win cash and other prizes. We support the sustainability dual major for students to complement their primary major with sustainability leadership skills and knowledge. And then we host events throughout the year. Megan, I'll turn it over back to you.
Thank you so much, Faina. So yeah, as you can see, we're pretty busy with a lot of great programs for students here at UNH. And today we're just going to talk about one of them, but I hope you'll take the opportunity to explore some of these other programs as well. So today we're going to talk about the Sustainability Fellows Program. And the Fellows Program really, so what we're all about is that we are trying to put together amazing students like all of you with some great organizations that are doing really important work in sustainability. We set the stage with some well thought out projects in a collaborative atmosphere, and our goal is to be building resilient communities throughout New England. So we really have, 3 goals. The first is to make a big impact. So these projects are designed to get something done and, project by project, summer by summer, to have a really big impact on the communities and the region. At the same time, we hope to create really fabulous learning experiences for all of you, possibly even career launching experiences for students who are interested in engaging in sustainability careers. And finally, we're using these projects and this summer cohort as a means to really create a whole network of sustainability professionals who are working and learning together throughout the summer and also throughout the rest of their careers. So that's kind of what the program is all about. We know that there are a lot of great internships out there, a lot of great companies and organizations that you could all work for. So I want to point out what we think anyway is what sets this experience apart. So you would not only be working, as an intern or a fellow at one organization, but really part of a bigger program that has a lot of other advantages. So first of all, we design the projects so that you can own them. So you will come in and really take responsibility for your own project and kind of have autonomy and ownership over your own work. The projects are also designed to have real tangible outcomes. So at the end of the summer, you'll have something that you accomplished that you can point to and say, this is what I did with my time, and it's important work. You'll also be part of a whole cohort of fellows working on different projects in different types of organizations. So you not only get the advantage of the experience of your project in your organization, but learning a little bit about the experience of these fellows who are doing all sorts of different things. So it's a great way to kind of get a broad view of all the possibilities within the realm of careers and sustainability, all in the matter of one summer. I mentioned that we're really trying to build a network as part of this program. And so that network is a really big advantage during the summer as well, because you'll be able to rely on this really active network for support and for mentorship and for information and resources. And that network is made up of all the organizations that we work with, all of the alumni that have been through the program, your peers who would be fellows with you during the summer, as well as a big team of people at UNH. There's a whole professional development component of the program that is kind of on top of your fellowship with your host organization. So you'll have a chance to participate in training, practice your skills, and engage in shared learning with your peers. Hopefully by now you know that this is a paid opportunity, and that's always been a really important part of the program. We think that you should be compensated for your hard work and for the skills that you bring to the table. Finally, these projects are designed so that you really are making an impact in the work that you do. So you're not going to an organization, doing a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and getting some exposure and some experience, but you're really working on one focused project that has an impact. So you leave a legacy at the end of the summer. So what does the summer look like? So you will be primarily focused on one fellowship project at one host organization. In another summer, you would actually be sitting at that organization. This year it's all online, but you would be working on a day-to-day basis with your host organization. That's kind of your primary focus. But at the same time, there are all these program activities organized by UNH that you would also participate in. And those are designed to kind of set the stage for collaborating with the other fellows, to offer you support and extra resources, and also to help you develop your skills throughout the summer. Some of the highlights of that are that we start the summer off with a 3-day orientation where you get a chance to get to know all the other fellows and all of us and the other organizations, learn a little bit about the projects that will be going on during the summer, kind of laying the foundation for being able to collaborate with everybody over the course of the summer. During the summer, on a weekly basis, there are a few different things that go on. You would meet with a small group of students in an advisory group. So these are students who are working on projects that would be related to yours in some way. So you kind of have a sounding board in a way, a place to work out issues and talk to other people about your the work that you're doing outside of your host organization. And each of those advisory groups has UNH staff that help out with it. We also have an alumni webinar series, so you get to hear from professionals who are working in the field in all different areas of sustainability. Again, another way to kind of get the broad view of what the options are for you in sustainability. We have a couple presentations during the summer where you get a chance to present your work and to learn about what everybody else is doing. And one of those happens halfway through the summer and then again at the end of the summer. So those are some highlights of the activities that happen on the program side to sort of supplement and go along with your fellowship project. This is a good time to point out that the fellowships are really a full-time effort. So we encourage you, if you're going to do this, to make sure that you're available to focus on a fellowship basically full-time for the summer. That said, they are online. So that's a little bit different than having to show up in an office for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, but it is still a full-time effort. So the fellowships themselves, the project work with host organizations, as well as all of the UNH program activities are all fully online this year, as they were last year because of the pandemic. So we've given up a little because it is so fun to get together with people in person, but there have been a lot of silver linings associated with this. And, we made it happen last year fully online with basically no notice, and it actually was amazing. And so we're excited to be able to do it again this year and to, be able to plan ahead for that. So you don't have to relocate to be part of this program this summer. So you can live and work wherever you are or wherever you choose to be. Schedule wise, just one thing to note is that most often schedules are worked out between the fellow and the host organization. But, if you're across the country or in another time zone, you should just be aware that there are certain meetings and things that will happen on East Coast business hours. So you should be prepared to be able to participate in those. In terms of setup, I think most people at this point probably have a computer with a mic and a webcam and internet and phone and a place to work, because that's how a lot of us have been functioning for the past almost year now. So we're hoping and expecting that fellows will be able to arrange for that on their own. That said, we don't want that to hinder anybody from applying or accepting a fellowship. So if you need help with those things, we're happy to talk to you about that. So that's kind of what the fellowships will look like this summer. I have two fellows with me today. One who participated in kind of the traditional model of the fellowship program in person a couple years ago, and then another fellow who did the online version of it last summer. So we're going to hear from Kendall Gray first, who was a fellow in 2019. Kendall did her undergraduate degree here at UNH in environmental conservation and sustainability, and worked with the UNH Energy Task Force for her fellowship on campus climate action and planning. Take it away, Kendall.
Awesome. Thanks, Megan. So I completed the fellowship during the summer of 2019. So I was a rising senior that year. My placement was with the UNH Energy Task Force. I was its campus climate action planning fellow. So throughout the summer, I worked on analyzing national, international high performance building standards and how those are integrated into policy at higher education institutions. And then I also benchmarked UNH's current building standards against those of other leading American institutions in the country, and then created a series of recommendations for my suggested, trying to think of the word here, my suggested standards that the university should implement based upon my research. And then that was to be included into kind of discussions further on, and whether it was something that UNH would want to adopt and then include in its third installment of its climate action plan, which we call WildCap at UNH. And then at the tail end of my summer, I did some research into internal carbon pricing and kind of the different outcomes you can achieve with that. So whether that's reducing building level energy usage, incenting sustainability decisions, shortening payback times, or creating a sustainability fund through internal carbon pricing. I looked at different options for that and kind of how it coincided with energy efficiency in buildings. So overall, I loved the fellowship so much. Going a little spiel about kind of what I gained from my experience and try not to babble too much, though I could talk on and on. So first of all, the fellowship gave me a really great opportunity to learn about innovative topics sustainability that previous to the fellowship, I didn't really have a very deep understanding of. And it also allowed me to sit across the table from some really key stakeholders on campus. So some of those were the facilities department, campus planning, finance, and a bunch of research professionals at UNH, and to also talk to sustainability directors at institutions across the nation. I think the fellowship itself is set apart from a bunch of other ones because it integrates career development and a lot of different formats that Megan talked about a little bit earlier. So one of the things I liked most about that was researching and trying out different ways of presenting my research. I see that as a very important part of our field and trying to get our information out in different formats that's digestible to the public. So one of our exercises was in creating 2 posters, which we then presented in different styles of the posters and trying to present our information differently and kind of rethink. So the one picture on there of the building was the centerpiece for my final poster. And then those posters are super great deliverables from the fellowship that I've used on my LinkedIn and can show to future employers. And then I also had my deliverable of my my report about my findings and recommendations. So I really like having tangible deliverables to show people, future employers or potential employers. And then finally, the fellowship just opened a lot of doors for me. So a few months after my fellowship, my mentor, Adam Kohler, invited me to speak at the UNH's Energy Efficiency Showcase, which basically was highlighting UNH's commitment in sustainability and also kicking off its partnership with Eversource, one of New England's electricity providers, and kicking off the partnership between the two. So I was allowed to speak alongside the president at UNH and the president of New Hampshire Eversource, New Hampshire Eversource, which was a super empowering experience because I was the only female undergraduate student and I got to speak about my fellowship experience. And then there's been a lot of other things that have come out of this experience too that I could point to, but don't want to talk for too long, so I can have Carly have a chance to talk as well. But basically, it also just aligned really well with my career path and giving me a look into community-driven bottom-up climate initiatives. So yeah, I can't say enough great things about it, and happy to answer any other questions as well.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us, Kendall. And we will have time for you to ask questions of the fellows at the end as well. So, and feel free to add your questions to the list, as we go along. So thank you, Kendall. And I will go ahead and turn it over to Carly now. So Carly did her undergraduate at Bates College and then followed up with a graduate certificate in audio storytelling at the SALT Institute for Documentary Studies in Portland, Maine. And she was a fellow with us last summer in 2020, working with the city of Keene, doing some outreach around their sustainable energy plan. Take it away, Carly.
Sure thing. Hi, everyone. My name's Carly Perruccio, and I'm based in Portland, Maine. And I saw one of the questions about, do you have to be affiliated with UNH before the program? I wasn't, and I had such a great experience, so I'm excited to tell you more. My role with the city of Keene was to help them educate the public about this really exciting plan that they had passed to try to get 100% of their energy from renewable sources. And my role was to really help to communicate that to the public and help the public kind of give feedback about some ways that Keene can actually get there to meet these goals. And I had applied to this particular fellowship, and I can tell you why I was drawn to it. I had previously had some experience in environmental advocacy at the Maine State House, but I had never actually worked for a government. And so I wanted to see what that was like. And as Megan mentioned, I've studied audio production at the Maine College of Art. And I thought that maybe audio could be a really helpful tool for a municipality to use to help communicate some of these sometimes wonky policy ideas to the public. And I think sort of the last reason, or one of the reasons that I was excited about this particular position, is that I really wanted to learn more about planning. When I was an audio student, I had done a reporting trip where I traveled from southern Maine, where I live, to northern Maine only on public transit. And it took me a really long time to do that. It took me 36 hours. And from that trip, it was sort of the first time in my life where I thought really about the impact of planning decisions on people's lived experiences, how they get around, where we get our energy from. And so that was a big reason that I was excited about this position with Keene. I would get to work with planners about making really important decisions that would affect people's everyday lives, like, where they're getting their energy to, keep their lights on. So ultimately, I was so glad to be chosen for the fellowship, and together with the planners at Keene, we decided that one of the best ways to help communicate this really exciting plan to the public would be to build a new website. So throughout this last summer, I built a sustainability website for Keene and designed it. And we included, helpful resources for people to learn more about ways that they could weatherize their homes. And I also produced 7 audio pieces. Some were interviews, some were kind of explainers about strategies that Keene might pursue to reach its energy goals. And the website also had space for folks to, give feedback and share ideas because this really was a community-informed plan. So I would say that that experience gave me so much. I mean, certainly there were those tangibles that, Kendall described, those being really helpful, and they were so helpful for me in finding the job that I have right now. I had an example of a website that I had built and, a graphic design portfolio and these audio stories. And right now, where I work for the Greater Portland Council of Governments, my job is right now to help municipalities and transit agencies build websites to better communicate what they do to the public. So that was really transferable. And I think just more personally, working with the planners in Keene really, for me, affirmed that, planning can be used to build more equitable and sustainable communities. And that's really important to me, like to have value-driven work. And so I do feel like, because of the experience I had with Keene, that really drew me to the work that I have now, where I'm working every day with municipalities and planners to try to, build a greater Portland region that is sustainable, equitable. And so that feels really good. So overall, it was such a positive experience for me. And I guess I also want to say that I did do the fellowship when it was entirely remote. And I think that I felt very supported, not just from my mentor at Keene, but also with the UNH program. I really appreciated that there was still a way to build community together because of those weekly meetings that I had with my small cohort, and then the alumni opportunities to connect. So I think that, of course, working remotely has its own challenges, as we all know, but I still felt like I had become a part of the UNH community. So that was really special. So I'll pause there, but I really can't say enough great things about the Sustainability Fellowship.
Thank you so much, Carly, and Kendall too. It's so heartwarming to hear from you guys. And hopefully that gives those of you who are in the audience just a little bit of a flavor for what it's like to actually be a fellow. So now I would just want to talk to you a little bit about the projects for this summer and how to apply to the program, and then we'll open it up for questions from all of you. Maybe, there we go. So this summer we have 20 projects to select from. About half of those are for undergrads, half are for grads. And if you look at all the projects, you'll see that they represent pretty much a really broad array of different types of work in sustainability and different types of organizations. So we've got everything from, big government institutions like federal government jobs to state government commissions, to cities and towns. We've got companies and nonprofits represented. Some of those are huge and some of those are tiny. So pretty big range of different types of organizations that are engaged in sustainability work that you could have a chance to work with. Also a big range of different types of work that you could work on. And so this year, those types of work, I think, fall into maybe 5 different themes. So we have a handful of projects that are really focused on climate resilience, like looking at human ecosystem interactions, that kind of thing. We have a handful of projects that are really focused on community engagement and specifically on, lifting up the voices of people who don't always have a voice or connection to this type of work. A handful of projects focused on corporate social responsibility. We always have a handful of projects focused on metrics, but different types of metrics. So all different ways of kind of measuring sustainability. How are we doing? Setting benchmarks and goals and figuring out how we can make progress towards those goals. And finally, a handful of projects around renewable energy and energy efficiency. So that's kind of an overview of the type of work that is available for this summer. And in addition to there being different kinds of things to work on and different organizations you can work with, there's also different, each project has a focus on a different type of work. So some of these are kind of technical, academic, research and analysis type projects. Some of them are more focused on policy and planning and implementing new programs, working with government, that kind of thing. And a lot of them are focused on communication. So it's all about reaching out to communities and engaging community members in the work. So in addition to there being different, themes you can work on, there's also different types of work you can engage in as part of this program. So all of that said, there's 20 different projects. How do you go about deciding which project or projects are the right one for you? So a few things to think about. First of all, is the topic something that you're really interested in and want to know more about? Also, is the type of work appealing to you? So I talked about some are really, kind of data analysis like, and some are all about, community engagement. So do you like to be talking to people all the time? Do you really love to analyze data? Think about the type of work that you will like to be doing, 40 hours a week, because we want you to be happy and engaged in the work that you're doing. Maybe that you have goals for specific skills or experience that you want to gain as a result of this. So think about whether these projects are going to offer you that opportunity. Again, there are various types of organizations. A lot of people come to this program specifically because they're looking for a way to gain experience in a specific type of organization. Like maybe they're really interested in municipal government, or maybe they really want to see what it's like to work in a small nonprofit. So this offers you a chance to think about what type of organization you'd like experience with. Various different types of communities involved in all of these projects. So there are rural communities, there are local communities, there are global communities, there are urban communities. So think about that as well. And finally, qualifications. Like if you want to be awarded a fellowship, please try to apply for one that you're really well qualified for. So let's talk a little bit about eligibility. There are 2 different cohorts of projects this year. So one set of projects is designed specifically for undergraduates from UNH. And so those will be students who will not have finished their undergraduate degrees before the program starts this summer. So those are students who are currently probably first, second, and third year students. Then we also have a graduate cohort, so a separate set of projects that are designed for students who will have finished their undergraduate degrees before the program starts. And those projects are open to students from UNH and also from any college or university across the country or in the world. So for those projects, students, it would be current seniors because they will have finished their degrees before the program starts, as well as recent graduates and graduate students. You'll note that the compensation is a little bit different for each of the groups of projects, and that's because the students in the graduate cohort will likely have, more training and more experience and be able to, offer their organizations a little bit higher level of work, and there's a little bit higher level of compensation that goes along with that. And then, of course, each specific project has specific academic background, skills, and experience that they may be looking for that are tied to the needs of the actual project. So once you figure out what projects you're interested in, you want to take a look at what those actual requirements are. I always get this question after I say there are specific requirements for each fellowship. Then people always ask, well, what kind of people do you want in this program? So I tried to answer that this year. These are a lot of the qualities that our awesome fellows have every single year. Like these are things that speak to this community of students. These are passionate students. They're passionate to make a difference. They're very collaborative by nature. They're adaptable. I'd say they're assertive, like they're ready to speak up, excellent communicators, systems thinkers, and I'm just really motivated to make a difference. So all of those things, like if you feel like that's you, this is the program for you. So if that's the case and you're ready to apply, here's how to go about doing it. I assume that you've probably found our website by now if you're here, but there's a bit.ly link there. You can also just Google UNH Sustainability Fellows, and I think you'll find us. And the application is there on the website. The deadline for applications is February 15th at midnight. And by midnight, I mean the night of February 15th. So before February 16th begins. And a few things you'll want to think about kind of preparing before you go to submit your application. So you may apply for up to 3 projects. So select the 3 projects you want to apply for, or, you don't have to apply for 3. You can apply for 1 or 2 if there's something that really speaks to you. There's no need to apply for more. You may write a cover letter for each of the projects. So this is to give you a chance to kind of make a connection between your skills and experience and interests and the needs and the opportunities of the project. So you can do that individually for each project. Come prepared with a resume. We only need 1 resume. You don't have to do a separate one for each project. Contact info for 3 references. We do not require letters of recommendation. So we just need their name, email, phone number, that kind of thing. And finally, we ask for a writing sample. And this is really just to give you a chance to show off your communication skills. So select something that is in the style of communication that will be required for the projects that you're applying for. So, if you are applying to do a kind of research project, then an academic piece of writing would be perfect. If you're applying for kind of a community engagement outreach type project, you might want to select something you've written for more of a public audience. If you're applying for 2 different types of projects, So there's a 2-page limit, but you may submit 2 1-page writing samples if you'd like to show off kind of 2 different types of writing. So those are all the things that you will need to get ready for your application. We ask you to put them all together into one package with a file name that looks like that, your first, middle, and last name, into one PDF. All of these instructions are on the website, but I just want to highlight them and point them out to you. There is an actual order that we ask you to assemble your package into. So cover letters first, then resume, references, and writing sample. So you're going to put all that together into one PDF and attach it to your application. Timeline. So as you know, applications are due February 15th. After that, we do our best to get through the applications and conduct all the interviews during the month of March. We hope to be able to reach out to everybody with offers or word on their application by early April. That's a lofty goal. So if you haven't heard from us, feel free to reach out, during April, but our goal is to let everybody know by early April. In terms of the program, it begins with orientation June 1st through 3rd. So that's kind of 3 full days of orientation with us. The whole fellowship term runs from June 1st to August 20th. That is almost 12 weeks. We ask for a 400-hour commitment during that time. So that's the equivalent of 10 full-time weeks over the course of almost 12 weeks. So there is a little bit of leeway in there for time off or whatever you need. I wanted to point out that orientation and 2 presentations that happen, so the midterm and final presentations, those are all required events. So if you have serious schedule conflicts with any of those dates, that's something you're going to want to resolve before accepting a fellowship, because those are not optional. And that's not just because we're, being stern, but it's because they're really important parts of the program, and that's the chance when we all get together to learn about what everybody else is doing and who everybody else is. And this is, if you can't be part of those, then it's hard to really be part of the program. So hopefully everybody can be available for those dates. Projects, there are 20 different projects. You probably can't really read these from here, but they're all on our website. I'm not going to read them all out to you specifically, but there are some amazing organizations in here and some really exciting work. And so I hope you'll take the time to look through all of the projects on the website. And there's a separate document for each one that goes into all the details for the project itself. And I think that's probably a lot of information, hopefully answers some of your questions to begin with, and we're glad to start answering any more questions you might have in the Q&A. So you can go ahead and just type your questions in there. Kendall is going to help us out in terms of moderating and selecting some questions for us to answer. And while you're all thinking about your questions and getting them typed in there, I want to just turn it over to Dovev real quick and see if he wanted to add any remarks.
Sure. Well, thanks so much, Megan, and to all of you for joining. And what else can I say? I mean, this is one of the best things I've ever done. As Megan pointed out, I was in the very first cohort 13 years ago, and I am so molded by the experience. So as Megan said, I am one of the deans at the graduate school in my day job. I'm also a coordinator with the Fellows Program, and that's obviously a direct impact from what I did in my experience, which I'll tell you a little bit about. That I did my fellowship in the second year of my PhD program here at UNH, which was a focus on natural resources and environmental studies. And my fellowship had me assessing the opportunities and challenges facing cities and towns that were trying to undertake climate action at the municipal and local level. And it was incredible. I got so much access to people, decision makers on the ground. I was tasked directly with talking and interviewing with different sustainability officers in different towns across New England. And both I learned so much about local action and sub-federal activity and what really are huge challenges, but also a whole lot of things that can be done to help out things on the climate end. And what was so rewarding was not just getting connected with those folks, who many of whom I still talk to today, but also seeing my assessments and the work that I did as a fellow directly translated into the initiatives at the town level. And that to me is one of the unique things about this program. I don't think there's a lot of internships like this that it's as much about training you to be an up-and-coming professional in the sustainability program, but you're also directly impacting what these institutions and cities and towns and companies are doing. And you'll see after the summer how much they value your work. It's now become kind of, at the first few times it happened, Megan and I both went, whoa, but now it's become very common, which is that we'll talk to the mentors of these sites after the summer to see how it went. And the common refrain now is, well, what do we do now that Carly's gone? That's a huge gaping hole, and we need to figure out how to recreate that. And so that really just shows the impact that you would have as a fellow, and that's pretty incredible. Just a little more about what I got from the program. The data that I collected, it fed directly into my PhD work. Helped me graduate a little quicker and have more of an applied experience in what I was doing. It also directly gave me the experience I needed to continue my work in sustainability. One of the other things that I do with Megan and the team here at UNH is I also work with a network of cities and towns across New England that are working together on climate action. And so that's a direct, again, direct line from the work that I did as a fellow. And what's really cool is that we actually now task a lot of our fellows in those cities and towns and in that network. And so it's really this kind of really circular and kind of self-feeding and leveraging component of the program. One more thing I want to underscore about the fellows program is also the network that you'd be plugged into. Megan, you can correct me if I've got the number wrong. We've got over 200 individuals that have now gone through the fellows program over the 13 years that's been in effect. And there are so many of them stay in contact with us to help out with different webinars, serving on panels, being a direct contact for potential jobs and opportunities down the road. We have now launched a alumni advisory board that I help to coordinate that is composed of alumni from the program. And we meet monthly to think about how we can really leverage all the talents and the energy of this really growing and pretty substantially large network of alumni from the program, and also the mentors at the sites that they worked at as well. So again, you'd be plugged into a nationwide network that can really help in a whole lot of ways with both your career and your professional and social development. So I'm sure Megan can put my contact info in the chat, so I'm happy to answer any questions, and always happy to talk about the fellows program. It's a really great experience.
Thank you so much, Devev. Looks like there's a ton of questions, so I'm going to turn it over to Kendall to let us know what she thinks we should answer. Also, just want to say we will attempt to capture all of this and answer them in writing and put it up with the webinar later. So if your question doesn't get answered, look for that later and/or contact us via email. And if you have questions that are really specific to your situation, please feel free to just email us, and we're glad to talk to you on a one-on-one basis about that. So Kendall.
Okay. So there's, we could talk a little bit more about eligibility for the program. There's a lot of questions. One, in terms of whether international students are eligible, and non-traditional individuals, especially people who are older. And then if we could maybe go back to the slide about which program or which cohort to apply for as an undergrad UNH versus a national or a UNH graduate, and where the role of a senior who's graduating undergrad, where they fall.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll try to hit all those. Thank you.
A lot layered in there.
Yeah. So non-traditional students are absolutely welcome. We often have a couple non-traditional students in the program, and they bring such a wealth of experience and perspective. So please absolutely apply, and glad to talk to you one-on-one about that as well. International students, I can't make any promises because it's a case-by-case basis, but if you're eligible to work over the summer in the United States, yes, you can certainly apply to the program. And if you're not sure, please feel free to apply. And if you become one of the finalists, we will connect you with our Office for International Students and Scholars, and we'll look at the specific situation and see what we can figure out. But we have I think almost every year since I've been involved in this program, had 1 or 2 international students who are going to school in the United States and therefore usually eligible to work over the summer temporarily in something that is related to their field. So glad to, again, talk one-on-one about that. But chances are we will be able to work it out, so you can go ahead and apply and we'll figure it out. And UNH, so let me go ahead and flip back to that slide. So for UNH, basically, if you are going to graduate by this summer, so if you'll have finished your degree by May, this coming May, then you should apply to projects in the graduate cohort. If you will not have finished your degree by this May, then you should apply to the undergraduate cohort. So generally that means if you're a first, second, or third year student right now, you would apply for undergraduate projects. If you're a senior or a recent grad or graduate student, you would apply to the graduate cohort. And just to clarify, the undergraduate projects are only for UNH students, and the graduate projects are the ones that are open to students from any college or university, including UNH. Hopefully that clarified that. But again, if you're still confused, get in touch with us because I know it's a little bit subtle to figure it out. Hopefully that addressed those. More questions, Kendall?
Yes. So can you speak a little bit to the interview process and the role of UNH staff reviewing applications and also host sites reviewing applications? There's questions whether the host sites will also be conducting interviews and what a little bit of that process looks and the competitiveness of it as well.
Yeah, okay, so this is a competitive program. I don't want that to scare you because it really is about finding the right student for the right project in terms of your background and skill set and also your interests. So we want you to be prepared to do the job well, and also we want you to get a ton out of the experience. So it's competitive, but you should totally give it a shot if you feel like one of these projects, you know, is your dream job, go for it. So interviews are conducted jointly between UNH staff, somebody from the host organization, and each candidate who is interviewed. So it's, you know, we do it via Zoom, and you would be talking to one of us, like me or Jovev or somebody else from UNH, and then 1 or 2 people maybe from the host organization, all together in one conversation. And those are conducted during the month of March. Did I answer that whole interview question, or was there more to that?
I think you hit it pretty well.
Okay.
A question in terms of for an individual who, how much background are they expected to have on a particular topic in order to apply to it, and kind of balancing the want to gain more knowledge and new experience, but also meeting the needs of the mentor or the host site? Like how much experience is expected or necessary to be able to land one of the positions?
That's a good question and kind of hard to answer because it depends on really, you know, what the applicant pool looks like. So you're definitely eligible to apply for anything. Because it's so competitive, I would focus on the ones that you feel like you're really well qualified for. That said, you know, part of this is also about making sure that you have the opportunity to learn something. So you're not expected to know everything going in. You're expected to know enough to kind of hit the ground running and to be somebody who's really going to gain a lot from having this experience and learning something over the summer. So hard to give you kind of a black and white answer on that one, but I would steer you towards applying for ones that you feel like you're well qualified for, just because we often get 20, 30, sometimes even up to 50 applications for one fellowship. And so you want to be one of the ones who, you know, rises to the top of that.
Awesome. Thanks, Megan. Can you talk a little bit about the writing samples, how long those are supposed to be, if there is like a hard cap and if you want any particular format, single, double spaced, for those submissions.
So there's a 2-page limit on the writing samples. Like I said earlier, if you want to break that up into 2 1-page samples to, display your ability to communicate in different ways, that's totally fine. What was the rest of that question?
The question on whether writing sample should be single spaced, double spaced. I'm guessing single spaced, you can fit more in there.
Yeah, as long as it's readable. Like if you send us something that's in like 6-point font and fills the whole thing, we're not going to read it, and that's not going to help you, right? So like a reasonable, readable 1-page is fine. So 2-page total limit, and use that 2 pages as you see fit.
Okay. A question maybe for Carly to answer. Could you speak to your experience remotely, and for an individual maybe who has not been working remotely, and if any recommendations in terms of transitioning into that, a fully remote job, and then also kind of a little bit more about what your mentorship experience looked like?
Sure. So I'll say that when I think the fellowship program started at the end of May. So in hindsight, it was pretty early on in the stage of the pandemic. So I think all of us were really adjusting to how do we work well remotely. And what worked well for me was having twice a week Zoom calls with my mentor. So my mentor, and I'll tell you more about this in a minute, it was a planner at the city of Keene. And so I did feel like I both had those biweekly check-ins were really helpful for me to understand their expectations, but I also felt like I had a lot of, they trusted me to work independently. So it just really worked well for me. And the mentorship component of this program is really important. So at each host site, you'll be working closely with 1 or up to 2 mentors. And it's a lot like, a sort of, they're kind of like your boss, but I think part of the great thing about this fellowship program is that those mentors really also are bought into the goal of this fellowship, which is, I think, developing young leaders in sustainability. And so there were a couple of prompts that we had during the program to have recorded interviews with our mentors to talk more about, what led you to be part of this field? What lessons did you learn when you were at the stage of your career where I am now that you can share with me? So in addition to the task of having deliverables at the end of the program, I think a big part of it is to develop those great relationships, not just with your cohorts, but also with, professional mentors. So I think the program is structured in such a way to really help build those relationships. So hope that answers the question.
Awesome, Carly. And I can elaborate a little bit about my experience with my mentors. So I had 3 mentors. Now they were all at UNH. I was working for the UNH Energy Task Force. And so sort of like Carly said, we had weekly meetings. And then in addition to that, there was meetings with other fellows each week too. So you not only get support by your mentors, but also by your fellow peers. And I will say that I still talk to all of my mentors, and they have been super supportive in me following my fellowship. And I've also looked out for opportunities for me down the road to continue kind of building off of my experience. So that's really great. And I'm certain that having that built-in network and kind of support net, I think it will be super helpful in terms of working remotely. And yeah, so that's kind of a little extra tidbit there. Anything to add, Megan or Devev, on that?
I think that one is best answered by you two, and you did a great job, so thanks.
Okay. And then we have a couple more minutes. So if you could talk, Megan, about kind of the rigidity of the program in terms of, is there any flexibility in the timeline for start dates or end dates? And if a student, for example, is their semester ends a little later, are they still eligible to apply?
Yeah. So the program runs from June 1st to August 20th. And as I mentioned, there are a few dates that are not flexible within there, and that's orientation for those first 3 days and the midterm and final presentations. Other than that, you have almost 12 weeks to complete roughly 10 weeks of work. So there is some flexibility. We do the final presentations 1 week before the end of the program. So if people want to finish up more quickly and take their, extra time at the end and be done a week earlier, they can. In terms of a semester that finishes later, I would say if you're able to swing orientation, which, in these circumstances will be easier because it's remote, so you can tune in from anywhere. If you're able to swing orientation, then you could start, maybe a week later or something and have that extra week there. So if you want to have a specific conversation about that, feel free to email me. But bottom line is there is some flexibility built into the program, but there are some dates that are required.
Awesome. And can you talk real quick about, so there's a specific question and maybe others have this question too. I thought it was interesting. Is there opportunity for a student to incorporate like honors thesis work into their fellowship experience?
Absolutely. And we've had lots of students take their work from the summer and incorporate it into, a thesis or whatever they're working on at school. So the projects are designed to be kind of what they are as they're written. So we're not going to kind of scrap a project plan and turn it into something else because you're already working on something else that you're interested in. But the reverse can happen in that you can come in and participate in the project. You definitely do have the ability to make it your own to some extent. Like, we want you to put your own footprint on this project. But then a lot of people do go back and turn that into a thesis or a senior project or part of their dissertation or lots of other things. And I believe that Dovev did that. If you want to speak to that a little bit, Dovev.
Yeah, both for myself. I mean, I was able to, and this is a long time ago, so things have changed, but the general spirit of that is, if it fits within the project and your advisor or your, whatever instructor you have at your college is willing to work with it, absolutely. And I can speak from being a mentor to a fellow a couple years ago, where we worked from the very beginning to make sure that the work could go into her graduate program capstone, and it basically ended up being the entirety of that, which worked out. Obviously, it's the whole two birds with one stone thing, and it worked out great.
Great. So I see that we've reached 3 o'clock, so we probably should wrap up. Thank you for all of your questions, and thank you so much for just being here and for your interest in being involved in the program and your interest in being involved in sustainability at all. It's really like, this is why we're here. This is why we do what we do. You inspire us. So we're so happy to have had the chance to talk to you today, and we'll work on answering your questions, any questions that didn't get answered, and stick that online. Also, feel free to reach out via email. But for now, thank you so much and enjoy the rest of your afternoons. And we look forward to your applications. And panelists, thank you also for joining us today.
Pleasure.
Thank you.